S. Fitzgerald. I was Googling the history of various recreational drugs and was surprised/alarmed that Narconon occupies the top science. I read through a few of the pages and found the information well-researched, referenced, and didn't try to plug its treatment. Could you concede that Scientology is doing a positive in this way? And how did they get to the top of the list? Okay, no, I'm not going to concede any such thing, and it's not because I have it in for Scientology or I can't ever acknowledge that there's anything good in it, because I've acknowledged lots of good things in Scientology. I really don't have much of a problem with the Way to Happiness booklet, and there's aspects of study tech that are fine and various other things. But when it comes to Scientologists talking about drugs, you're talking about a group of people who really do not know what they are talking about. And when you say that these materials are well referenced and cited, referenced to who? Scientology doctors? Because there are Scientology doctors who act as shills for the Narconon programs, and they will assert with MD after their name that the Purification Rundown, for example, is a great program that rids a body of toxic elements that it has absorbed over time, and that these toxic elements need to be gotten out, such as LSD and toxic fumes and things like that, and alcohol and drugs and pot, right, and heroin. Well, guess what? The science that these guys cite for that kind of stuff is a bunch of pseudoscience and bunk. LSD, for example, does not stay in your body. There is not a clear, studied, understood reason why LSD flashbacks occur. But we do know that the reason that they occur is not, we know it's not because LSD residuals are staying lodged in the fatty tissues of your body and somehow coming loose and going into your brain or something. And this is what Scientologists think, right? Because this is what Hubbard thought. And they have this whole workup that these drugs and stuff stay in your body forever. And I did a whole video on this after getting a whole briefing on this whole thing from a biochemist. So this is, their science is way, way off. Scientology also has the view that all drugs of any kind are bad. Medicinal drugs, pharmaceutical drugs, psychoactive drugs, any drugs, recreational included. And if their literature on this is right out of Reefer Madness. There is a lot of research being done right now on the medicinal effects of marijuana, specifically THC, right, and the various elements of it. And there are some positive thinking on this. And the other factor, of course, is that old movies like Reefer Madness and stuff horribly misrepresented what these drugs actually do. Heroin, major, heavy-duty drugs, yeah, those have some bad effects on people, and they need to be medically supervised. But pot? Come on. Pot is misclassified by the federal government, and if you look into the history of it, it goes back to the days of Nixon and racism, and there's a lot of nasty stuff mixed up with why pot has such a bad name. Now, I'm not sitting here saying that everybody should be smoking pot every day, but I'm also not saying that they shouldn't, because I can tell you from personal experience that it can be very, very relaxing and very, very helpful to one's state of mind, especially if one is experiencing PTSD or anxiety. That's my own personal thing on that. I'm not a medical doctor. I'm not endorsing anything on a medical basis. Go see your doctor if you want an endorsement like that. I'm just telling you from my own personal experience that I have found it very useful and helpful. And I have found consistently, one for one, again and again, that the scare stories and alarmist tactics of people of the anti-drug coalition on this topic to be filled with false information, outright lies, and or exaggerations and hyperbole. So, this is a contentious topic, and I understand if you have moral principles that tell you that all drugs are bad, but realize that's a moral argument, not a scientific one. The science on this is still being done. So, so you can definitely use a moral argument if you want to about recreational drugs, and maybe Scientology would have a lot more success if they would go that route, but instead they use pseudoscience. And Hubbard's claims about drugs and the effects of drugs on the mind, I mean, he said a lot about this stuff. I could go on for a very long time telling you all the crazy nonsense that L. Ron Hubbard said about drugs, including drugs on the whole track. In other words, drugs from thousands of years ago that you took that you're still experiencing the ill effects of because of restimulation of your mental image pictures. I mean, Hubbard was nuts when it came to figuring out how people act. And he had all kinds of fanciful ideas that sounded really nice, but have zero evidentiary data behind them, right? So, I mean, when you're telling people that the reason that they're having problems in their life right now is because they're restimulated on drugs that they took 20,000 years ago on some other planet, you know? Are these really the guys you want to be listening to about whether you should or shouldn't be taking drugs that actually could be helpful for you in your life right now? I don't think you should. And that's my opinion, but that's what I have to say about that. So, no, I don't think that Narconon is a good program. People have died doing it. I don't think the purification program that they use has any merit whatsoever. And in fact, I think it is dangerous and potentially fatal. And I think their Narconon program as a whole is no more effective than any other drug treatment program out there. And the percentages back me up on that in terms of recidivism rate. Say that 3 times fast. So there you go.